Yeah, you can check that, Sriram. It started.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, some constant sound is coming. What is that? Now it is okay. Now it's okay. Thank you. Again started. Now again stopped.
Shubham, we are at 8:30, and I can start whenever you're okay.
Yeah, I think we have just 4 p.m. now, and we'll give 5 more minutes. Typically, there could be a little bit of challenges in the work from home situation for many people. So let's give them a little more time. And for the team who has already assembled, request you to bear with us for 5 more minutes, please. Shriram, for the sake of everybody else's time who has already joined, I would request you to start off, and I am sure there will be other people joining in.
Sure. Um, Good evening, everybody. My name is Sriram. Before I start, I just wanted to ensure that everybody is able to see my screen and are able to hear me loud and clear. If anybody has a problem, please raise in the chat box. Just a quick reminder, we'll be recording this session. The webinar and the presentation will be shared. Um, and please use the chat box for any questions you may have. And we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. Again, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Sriram Bhargav. I am the Chief Technology Officer and head of the Robotics and AI division in NetLabs Global. Prior to NetLabs Global, I've worked for Wipro for almost 7 years, where I used to head the robotics and AI business for Asia Pacific, including India. And prior to Wipro, I was in TCS for almost 13 years, where I held various positions, but predominantly doing transformation, innovation, and subsequently automation. Thank you again for joining this webinar. And the webinar today is about robotic process automation and artificial intelligence in the healthcare sector. Uh, we will be looking at a lot of use cases which are actually driving transformation in the healthcare sector. So the agenda broadly for today in this webinar, you will basically look at the hyperautomation trends, which is powered by RPA and AI, specifically in the healthcare sector. Uh, we will also spend a lot of time on various use cases for RPA and AI, which predominantly are driving efficiency, experience, and economics in the healthcare sector. A lot of enterprises often ask questions as to where do they start. They're worried and scared about where will they fail with respect to automation. And it's very important that people start green and stay green, especially when it comes to automation. And we'll take a quick sneak peek as to how your projects should ideally not fail. We'll also talk a little bit about NetLabs Global and how we're helping enterprises in their transformation journeys. And finally, we'll also take a look at the Robocare.AI, which is a comprehensive platform for hyperautomation, which is enabling the healthcare enterprises for today. This is the agenda of the webinar. As I said, more focus will be on the use cases and some demonstrations around it. Quickly moving on, this I would say 2018 to 2020 has probably been the age for robotics and artificial intelligence, or the years for robotics and artificial intelligence. Hyperautomation solutions are powering digital transformation or the digital journeys of various enterprises today. Uh, you know, Anybody who's doing automation or anybody who's trying to automate anything in their enterprise should always keep in mind the 3E outcomes, which is around efficiency, experience, and economics. So any automation projects which you do should result in good efficiency gains. It improves the experience of either the end user, the consumer, or the IT teams. And then obviously it should lead to significant economic optimization. So let's just take a look at some of the future predicts, and some of these is something which you will know. By 2024, organizations will drive a huge amount of operational cost reduction using hyperautomation technologies, especially RPA and AI. By 2022, it is predicted that almost 40% of application development projects will have artificial intelligence coders in it. That means the whole game will change from just being a .NET or a Java enterprise to people who actually code with a significant background of AI. And then by 2023, it is said that 50% of all people who are collaborating in the Industry 4.0 kind of ecosystems will kind of use digital and virtual agents to interact with people, to do their day-to-day job. So the predictions are all around using hyperautomation technologies to the fullest. And within the next 2 to 3 years, we'll be seeing a grand shift in the way we are doing things today. And to the right, if you see the Gartner hype cycle actually for healthcare, and this hype cycle is specifically for healthcare, it kind of shows hyperautomation technologies, including AI and robotics, at the peak. So that means that a lot of healthcare organizations are using or experimenting with technologies like RPA and cognitive technologies, including artificial intelligence. While AI is at the peak, right? Some of the larger healthcare organizations, across the globe, are already reaping the profits of their investments in RPA, which is robotic process automation, and we'll see what that means. And it actually has hit kind of the trough of disillusionment. So that means that at this stage, some of the large enterprises are done with RPA, and now they are asking what's beyond this. And people are running projects which are called beyond RPA projects. So while we take a look at this era, hyperautomation today is not a choice. It's more of a mandate. If you look at every CIO or a CDO or a CTO today in any organization, the first thing he'll have on his agenda is hyperautomation. So if you look at the left there, the challenges and the situations which are faced by enterprises, which are actually driving them to kind of automate. And let's take a look at the top 5 reasons. And if you look at the orange buttons there, the top 5 reasons for healthcare enterprises to automate is number one, it's regulatory. The top of the chart is regulatory, while if you look at other enterprises, non-healthcare enterprises, it's probably organizational disruption. So if you look at the top 5 again in healthcare, number one is regulatory, the second one is organization disruption, third one is severe operating cost pressures, the fourth one is IT service failures, which is quite common and has been there for centuries. I mean, I think at least for the last 20 years. And the last is shifting consumer demands. To the right of the slide, you can see what will enterprises deploy or adopt in the next 12 months. Top of the chart, obviously cybersecurity is on everybody's top of the chart today. But then if you look at the next three, which is AI, RPA, and conversational platforms, these three are on the top of the list for every enterprise today. Moving on, this proves that automation is mandatory in enterprises. So now let's take a quick look at what is AI versus RPA and what's the big difference. A lot of people talk about RPA, a lot of people talk about AI. What's the real difference, right? RPA, which is called robotic process automation, uh, is used to automate very high volume and repeatable mundane tasks. RPA actually performs a lot of complex activities like screen scraping or whether it is screen grabbing, and it can also validate lots of data, kind of before it automates the process. It's predominantly used in business process automation, which includes things like claims, includes things like invoice management, KYC checks, claims adjudication, expense management, those kind of typical backend processes, which are all, come under the HR, finance kind of, segments. RPA is, I would say, is completely rule driven. It is not cognitive in nature. That means it's not intelligent that it self learns. It is all rule driven. On the other side, AI are driven by very powerful, intelligent cognitive algorithms. So that means, it can understand, it can learn. Hello.
Your screen just disappeared, Shriram.
Hello.
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 Yeah, it has come back your screen. You need to go to the presentation.
Oops. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, very quickly back on. So AI systems are intelligent systems and it can learn. It has quite a few algorithms which can learn, understand, and emulate human behavior. Top of the RPA platforms to the left, you have Microsoft, which is now becoming a leader in the RPA segment as well. Is UiPath, there's Automation Anywhere, there's Work Fusion, there's Blue Prism. There are quite a lot of platforms. And in the AI sector or in the AI segment, Microsoft, AWS, Google, and IBM Watson kind of are the top of the cream. So while we have now tried to, at a very high level, understand what's RPA and AI, let's quickly take a look at what are organizations automating, right? This is very important for us to delve into the various use cases, which are the main topic of the day. So if you look at organizations, you can split it by process, which means you can look at accounts payable, you can look at claims, you can look at finance, you can look at HR, etc. You can also look at automation by technology, which can be desktop-based automation, email-based automation, SAP-based automation, etc. and obviously by industries, which means banking and financial services, telecom, and healthcare is obviously on the top. While organizations are doing this, the most important thing which everybody are kind of attempting at the lower end of the curve, people who are just getting started are using use case based automation, which they're using to eliminate work. A little bit of a mature organizations or enterprises are using automation in a service model. So that means they're using a platform based approach to automate a lot of their processes. And more of the mature organizations today are actually using what is called as a persona based automation. So if you look at a very matured enterprise, they would have automation for the CFO, chief financial officer, or automation for the CHRO, which is the human resource officer, or the automation for chief marketing officer, etc. So persona based AI and automation is becoming a very fast trend, and you can see a lot in the next few years as to how persona-based automation will be powered by RPA-AI. Now, moving on quickly to the use cases, which are the main topics of discussion for today. So the way we could look at various use cases in RPA and AI, let's look at it by the segments, the payer and the provider segment, and then look at pharma and the medical devices segment. What we'll basically do today is go through some of the use cases as to what those use cases have benefited the enterprises and how they have been able to transform the whole operating model or the process in itself. Now, before I actually move into the use cases, I just want to introduce all of you to what is called as Robocare.AI. Robocare.AI is a comprehensive hyperautomation platform for healthcare, and it is powered by a fusion of technologies, including RPA and quite a few AI-based technologies. This is the flagship of NetLabs Global. What Robocare.AI is a is a comprehensive hyperautomation platform which has a bot studio, a bot trainer, a library, and an administrative suite. Now let's take a quick look at what Robocare.ai is. Please allow me to play a very quick video, and we will get back into the presentation very soon. got a good idea about what Robocare.AI is. As I said, it's a comprehensive hyperautomation platform which we are enabling for healthcare enterprises. Robocare.AI uses Microsoft Azure AI stack, which actually includes the Azure Cognitive Services and the Azure ML platform, which is the machine learning platform. And as you saw, there are quite a few use cases which it kind of powers, which actually the top healthcare companies are attempting today. And let's look at what are some of those use cases. So first thing is about patient registration automation process or patient registration automation. Now, a very common problem in the hospital industry is that when patients walk in, new patients walk in, they spend a lot of time with respect to their the registration process. So the whole registration process can be automated and has been automated in several cases with a unique combination of RPA and AI, where the robots or the bots can actually recognize structured and unstructured forms and extract information from there. So it can read patient name, date of birth, all the relevant data which the patient has filled. Then it can also look at image recognition capabilities if there's any photographs attached, etc. It can extract and validate patient data from forms, and then it can actually put all of this data into the respective medical application systems, or in the US, it's called EMRs. In India, it's called medical systems. So there are various aspects of it. So it can integrate to third parties and actually pick everything from the form and put it into any application. And the accuracy is unbelievable. People have seen accuracies of anywhere between 80% to almost 96%. If you look at the outcome, it saves 50-60%, 50 to 60% of the time, especially in the registration, time. The second one is obviously it saves a lot of time and effort for the front office personnel. Now, the second use case which I'm talking is a little bit more complex, which is called as the credential process automation. Credentialing is a very complex process, which essentially means that every doctor has to submit a whole lot of documentation every year to prove that he is certified and he is still in the state of performing whatever he is doing as a doctor. So this process in the backend requires a lot of manual work in order to check all the certificates and all the documents which the doctors submit. It also needs the people going into various websites to kind of check whether the doctor has the relevant experience or the certificates and stuff like that. It's a very complex process before a physician is actually credentialed every year. So a solution of RPA and AI was used to kind of look at reading various type of documents, which could be certificates, it could be forms, it could be education letters, experience documents, doctors' licenses, etc., etc. So these bots are actually trained to look and validate various data points, and then what will be the outcome is that all of this information is checked against various websites or various data sources. And then finally, the credentialing process is completed. So one of the snippet which I'll show you now is when, specifically around how the automation is done for NPI validation, which is a very important process in the credentialing system. Here's the bot which is actually extracting information from the document which the doctors have provided. So if you look at it, there's handwritten information. And once it extracts, it has to go to NPI registry, which is a website. And it is now going into the website. It is actually putting the doctor's name and actually verifying whether whatever the doctor has given is correct or not. And finally, it displays that whatever the doctor has given as information is validated with multiple websites, and the information which is provided is correct. And thereby, one of the credentialing steps is successful. So here's a simple example of how a bot can extract information from a website, from a document, and then now whatever the extracted information is being put into various systems or third-party systems. So here's a simple example of how a tough process like credentialing process can be easily automated using the technologies of RPA and AI. Now, while credentialing is a very important process, let's take a look at some of the other critical common processes which are automated in the industry. Moving on, there is a big process called as the medical records extraction and automation process. Now, what happens in a lot of healthcare companies is while there is a lot of digitization already in the mix, a lot of documents are still not digitized. So people have huge teams who actually process physical records. They take a look at the physical record and then transcribe the information in the physical record to a particular application. So here's where the bot or the AI and the RPA bot, a combination of AI and RPA. In this particular case, NetLabs has done work with the Azure AI and the Microsoft RPA, which is the Power Automate part of it. Now that Microsoft has also acquired Softomotive, it gives more muscle strength into the RPA functionalities of Microsoft. Now, what we've done is we've used a unique combination of Azure AI and Microsoft RPA with human in the loop kind of a segment or human in the loop feature. Now, what it does is it classifies medical records step by step after understanding what kind of record it is. So it kind of can recognize whether it's a blood report or it's a bone density report or an MRI, etc., etc. And then it can potentially extract important codes from the medical record, like ICD codes, CPT codes, etc. And it can save all of this data and cross-verify it with patient records, right? So the benefits from this process are almost 75 to 80% increase in the processing time per medical record. And there's always been an 80% FTE optimization in the end-to-end process. Now, moving very quickly on, the claims process automation is a very, very, very famous process. It's probably one of the most automated processes in the healthcare industry. And claims is, obviously everybody knows what is a claims process. It has, deep reliance on the speed and accuracy. And it also involves a lot of layers of administrative, managerial, and customer service functions. And so what happens in a claims automation process is, with the use of RPA and AI, you can use RPA and AI to quickly validate the claim and approvals of the claim. So let's take a quick look at how a claim can be actually approved using an RPA and AI bot. Now, here's a bot which can approve a claim. Now, how is it doing it? It's taking a look at uh, the health insurance claim form, scanning the form. It is extracting all the information from the form, and then it is using that information and putting it into a different application. And it can be trained on various exception scenarios as well. Now, the extracted information is being put into another application. And now the bot is checking for various scenarios. So the number one, it's checking whether the age criterion matches. It's checking whether the telephone number matches. It's checking whether the policy number is matching. And this is just simple examples of how it can validate. And based on these rules which you write in terms of what all validation it can really do, it has now gone ahead and it will actually approve the claim. So here is a simple snippet of how you can use RPA and AI to actually automate the whole claims process. So whether it is the approval process or just the exception process, a lot can be handled with with RP and AI in the claims side of things. So if you look at the overall time saved there, almost 50% increase in the number of claims which are processed and 70% accuracy in the number of, in the quality of approvals. So that's the most important, thing for a claims, a company which handles claims. It's about the quality of approvals than the number of claims approved. So now let's move on to a few use cases which are more generic in nature, but are heavily used in the healthcare side of things. The next one is around the diagnosis codes, extraction and automation. Now again, diagnosis codes, especially in the US, and if you know, and this is true in India as well. What typically happens is there are a lot of documents which includes doctor's notes. So doctor writes a lot of notes wherein there are certain conditions mentioned. There are also certain codes mentioned, which are called ICD codes typically. So what typically happens is, you have various aspects of RPA and AI, which can actually extract the ICD codes or any codes for that matter from documents or from doctor's notes and actually predictively tell the doctor that when a patient is going to a doctor for checkup, it can predictively tell him that here were the symptoms from last time. So here's what you have to absolutely do within the next 2 months for the patient. So the doctor in front of him will have very clear views on what tests have been done, what are the outcomes of those tests, and what the patient could do or should do in the next 2 to 3 months. Obviously, the the bot is not talking about the health condition of the patient. It is merely stating some of the facts to the doctor, and the doctor will use these points to do a better analysis and to give a better solution for whatever the condition of the patient is. So this is a common process which is being automated. Now moving on, now invoice process automation is again one of the most common processes which are actually automated in the healthcare industry. Let's take a quick look at how invoices are automated. And here's a view of invoice automation. Well, very important point here. I just wanted to kind of quickly take everyone through to this process because a lot of people have questions about what if the bot makes an error? What if the bot is not able to extract something? So in this whole use case, what we just looked at is the robot is able to look at an invoice, extract very relevant information from the invoice, which could be an invoice number, the invoice value, the date of the invoice, what tax, what state. It could extract anything from an invoice and put it into applications like whether it is JD Edwards or SAP Ariba and stuff like that. But let's say you get thousands and tens and thousands of invoices in a month, and you have a whole team processing invoices. How about the bot processing all the invoices and getting this kind of a dashboard to the team? Now, all the people in the team has to do is when they come in the morning, they can see what are the wrong invoices or what are the errors identified and go and correct them. Now, how do they really correct them? If you look at this view here, now to the right is the actual original invoice which has come, which the bot has already read, and it has actually extracted multiple sets of information here. But if the bot is not able to extract something very specific, it will show it in red here, and then the person will only go and correct that particular field and click on save, and voila, then the whole process continues. So this is a very quick view of how invoice automation, which is a very common problem in the market today and a very common, I would call it a very manually intensive process for healthcare and enabling companies. So again, a comprehensive hyper automation solution here with a combination of Microsoft Power Automate and Azure AI, helps in the whole automation of this invoicing process. Now, the benefits of this, again, 85% decrease in the time taken to process an invoice. And then there are no limits in the number of invoices it can process in a day. I mean, if you have obviously a thin team, they can probably process 100, 200 in a day, but then this can process any number of invoices in a day. So these are some of the typical use cases, which are very common and being done. Now let's take a look at some of the use cases in the other side of the healthcare sectors, which are especially in the pharma area, which in pharma, while most of the payer slash provider use cases holds good. Some of the very unique use cases specific to pharma is something in the clinical trial processes. Now, I'm sure you would have all heard about randomized clinical trials. They are used to kind of test new therapeutics. Now, what typically happens is the recruitment process or the patient matching process is a very, very tedious and a lengthy process. And there is a lot of error rate, especially in the recruitment or the patient matching process, because of a lot of data involved in it. Now, what typically is done in the pharma industry is they're actually using RPA and AI and using AI to the core to kind of build algorithms and models which help in the patient matching and the recruitment process, right? So these models kind of benefit from the understanding of the data, which are integrated into the clinical trial processes. Now, how is this done? There are ML techniques, machine learning techniques such as association rules or decision trees, which kind of help find trends in certain patients. And then with advanced analytics as well, you can look at matching criteria to a lot of accuracy levels. And obviously, after that, robotic process automation bots can then help in the actual recruitment process by helping with initial interactions or interacting with prospective subjects, etc. Now, while I cover the next or the last use case, which is the HR process automation, I just wanted to also talk about the unprecedented times we're all having now in the form of COVID. Now, we're all in this together. We're all fighting and ensuring that we're all staying safe. But I would want to take a moment to give all my kudos and all my respect to all the healthcare workers across the globe who are helping us in fighting this pandemic. And this is the time where technology can help them a lot. And a lot of people or a lot of healthcare organizations are turning towards automation to help them in fighting a pandemic like COVID. So let's take a look at how some of the typical, I would call it AI or RPA solutions can help during COVID. One of the most common things which are helping is a chatbot. A chatbot is nothing but a bot which you can chat with, just that there's no human being behind and it is intelligence of a bot. Now let's take a look at how a virtual patient assist can actually help in the process. Now you want to fix an appointment. So you are actually clicking in the chatbot that you want to schedule an appointment. Says what problem are you facing? Throat, which doctor, you know, uh, well, simple 5 to 6 clicks with some information, you can schedule an appointment. Now, what is happening, especially in the COVID times, is that doctors are busy. It's very difficult to get hold of the right people on the phone. So people are turning to chatbots like this to make appointments and also ensuring that their social distancing aspects are all taken care, right? So this is a very, very, very important part of technology. Now, while appointment fixing is one, rescheduling appointment is much easier. You can just go and reschedule appointments with the click of 3 or 4 buttons. Now, this is another easier thing to do rather than calling people and asking them to reschedule, etc., because they're helping people. So this is while these are some of the common use cases of chatbots, there are other simpler or other things like generic aspects is to track order status of certain things, and here if you have an order number, you can find out whether you've got your medicine or your it can be used in any aspects as such. Now, you can also use it for resolving delivery issues or any kind of IT issues or any kind of issues you have with any products or any frameworks as such. So here's a typical view of how chatbots can actually do stuff with healthcare and beyond healthcare. We're proud to be partnered with Yellow Messenger, which is a very, very, very famous and inline conversational AI platform. It's the preferred digital assistant platform for enterprises. Now, while I have covered quite a few of the use cases, and we have left with about 15 minutes into the into the webinar, just wanted to end it by with 2 or 3 slides where one of the most common questions people have asked me is, Sriram, where do I start? Or where will I fail? How do I start green and stay green? So if you are planning to start automation and you have not done anything before, our view or our sense from NetLabs is that you start with simple processes like automating emails, simple processes like automating documents, which means bots can take a look at the email, read the email, understand the email, and classify the email or take note of the email or take action of the email. Like somebody has written an email to you saying, hey, my phone number is changed. Can you please update the records? You don't need a human being doing it, right? The bot can read it, understand that you need the number to be changed, and it can change it in the backend with obviously some processes in the middle. Now, these documents can be automated. As you saw, a lot of use cases, you can automate a lot of aspects of the document. People are automating stuff in the information technology area, which is IT area, which means that the incidents, the service requests, etc., etc. are being automated. Chatbots are being used to handle customer interaction scenarios. And then nowadays I'm sure you would have heard how to take a COVID test using a chatbot. So we've also developed a COVID test with a chatbot wherein you can answer some basic questions and then it will tell you what to do. uh, One of the most common aspects of why uh, you know automation projects will fail, and this is a very interesting fact, that if you choose a poor process which has a lot of complexities, which has a lot of exceptions, that process will not allow you to be successful. So choose a simple process which can help you automate. First show the people that automation is successful, and then you will slowly start building more and more cases. So choosing the right process is very important, and that's where NetLabs Global can help you identify the right process. Then it's obviously lack of subject matter. You should have subject matter in the specific area which you're choosing. So these are some of the common reasons as to why RPA and AI projects will fail. And to ensure that you start green and stay green, it is important that you partner with the right enterprise, partner with the right people, partner with the right solution providers. And that's where we come in. We are NetLabs Global. We are a global business transformation enabler, and we help enterprises in their business transformation journey with the power of three things, which is technology, infrastructure, and people. We have we are a nimble company with a lot of customers, 50 plus customers, um, with about 20 plus strong technology partnerships with the likes of Microsoft, Google, UiPath, Yellow Messenger, etc. We are present in India, headquartered out of India, and we are also in the US, in the East Coast, and we are also in Australia, in New South Wales and Sydney. What we do essentially is we can help all of you with your requirements of automation. We first can help you with strategic assessments and roadmaps. So that means we can do a typical anywhere between 2 to 6 week or 4 to 6 week kind of assessments to look at what should be automated and how it should be automated. So we come up with a typical consulting framework. We have built our own consulting framework around this. And we can help you with a clear documentation of what should be automated, why it should be automated. Do you have ROI or business case in doing that automation, right? The next thing, the most important thing in any automation journey is the automation design and the build of automation and implementation, or actually configuring the automation aspects, and the support of it. The support is very, very important because automation is continuous. It's not one-time activity. In RPA, there is exception handling processes which are very critical. So supporting an automation project is very important. So at NetLabs, we help customers with their design of automation. We build automation solutions. We've implemented automation solutions and we support them. And finally, last but not the least, we have what is called as the COE, or the Center of Excellence. A lot of companies are doing this. Center of Excellence is nothing but a place where you start automating continuously. So what typically happens is, in certain organizations, this is also called automation acceleration centers. So that means in a COE construct, you have some people, you have software, and you have people trying to automate process on a quarterly basis. Think like a funnel. So you put more and more projects into the funnel, and out comes the most important, automation project. And that is how COEs have thrived in the market. It's a very important construct of a large enterprise as such. So NetLabs Global can help you with all aspects of your automation, which is basically consulting, which is strategic assessments in the roadmap, we can build automation, design, build, implement, and support, then obviously help you with if you're interested in setting up a center of excellence for your automation activities. I wanted to thank all of you for participating in this webinar. Now we have about 9 minutes left in the webinar, and I wanted to reserve these 9 minutes for Q&A. Happy to take questions, any clarifications, thoughts, anybody on the call. If you have anything, I can answer. Let me also check if there are any questions in the chat room. If there are none, more than happy to take questions. Anybody not able to unmute yourself, please raise your hand or just type in the chat box if you have any specific questions and you're not able to ask it. Yeah, there's one question from Kapil Nagalia. Yes, he says he's joined a little late. Yeah, will the recording be shared with the participants? Absolutely, yes, Kapil. We will be sharing both the webinar recording as well as the presentation which we used for the webinar. We'll be sharing it very shortly with all the participants. I'll be looking at any other questions. Yep. Okay, looks like there are no specific questions. I just wanted to end by a couple of thoughts on the automation journeys which healthcare organizations are taking. Steps they are taking towards the hyperautomation journey. Number one, as I mentioned, NetLabs Global, we are helping a lot of healthcare enterprises do the right thing in automation. It is very important to understand that it is not about selecting a tool or it is not about selecting a particular platform. It is about basically identifying the right process and what's the problem. Now, most of the healthcare organizations are now looking at, in 2 or 3 segments. The first segment is anything to do with the patient and to ensure that the patient aspects are taken care. The second one is towards the caregivers, whether it is the doctors or the nurses or the whole equipments in the hospitals and stuff like that, or in the pharma cases, it is all the R&D side of things. Now, the most critical aspect is to look at where the maximum ROI is, but in healthcare, it is just not as straightforward as just looking at ROI for everything. It is also important that patient care improves, the overall quality of healthcare improves. So we at NetLabs are working with a lot of enterprises and a lot of healthcare companies to help them on their digital transformation journey, where hyperautomation is playing a very, very, very critical and important role. And we will continue in the whole process of helping healthcare organizations excel in their hyperautomation journey. So thanks. And just before I close, any questions from anybody?
Yeah, if there are no more questions, then we'd like to thank Sriram for this session, and I would like to thank everyone who has joined this session, making time. We are hoping that you have found this session useful. You have the email sales@netlabsglobal.com. You can reach us out there for any questions or further discussions. Our teams will also reach out to you, and at the same point in time, We would love to hear your feedback regarding the session. That can always help us improve. And we are also planning a set of future webinars going forward on healthcare, covering robotics and automation in other facets of the same, also around cyber security and infrastructure services, very specific to how healthcare sector is looking at those elements. I would again like to thank every one of you for joining in, and we'll be sending you the webinar recording and the presentation that was used for your future reference. Thank you again. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, ji, good evening.